What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another POV. We're going to have a pretty chill one today on this mellow morning walk with the Viltrox 25mm f1.7 and the Fujifilm X-S10. It was quiet, the sun was starting to poke its head out, and I just wanted to get out and explore, making the most of it being quiet. London, when it is quiet, is such a fascinating place, and when I post videos or photos and it's quiet, I often get questions about what time of day it was, because people often don't see London when it's quiet, and sometimes to their surprise I often say it's a Saturday morning, and that's the case for this video too. It's like most of my photo walks, I like to start out getting a bit warmed up, firing off a few frames just to get the old shutter finger warmed up, also just to try and wake up my eyes to what's going on around me. And with it being quiet, it can often be a challenge to find interesting subjects with them being few and far between. So, as the morning progressed, I wanted to try and focus more on what was happening around in general. Working the scene a little bit more, fishing for some shots, once I'd found a scene that I liked. So we started off exploring some of these small side streets. And due to how low the sun was with it being the morning, it was casting some really interesting shadows down some of these side streets. It's kind of not coming across well on camera right now, but where I was, because of where the sun was, it was creating a lot of shadow down some of these small side streets. So here, the light from the sun was casting shadow along the streets, and at the end you can see this real pop of light on what can be quite a dark scene from some of these side streets, and you can see how it's highlighting the building at the end. The one downside of working scenes like this is it can be hard to predict what's going to happen at the end, as the window for subjects appearing is quite narrow. So I'm just getting low to the ground, getting a different perspective on the scene, allowing me to use the paths as some leading lines and also the buildings. And then I'm just waiting for something interesting to happen at the end, or something incredibly London. So it instantly tells the viewer where the image is. So I was holding out for taxis, buses, but also people in bright clothing walking across and things like that. As you can see, I was probably waiting here quite a while, but with some of the shots that I managed to get while I was here, I definitely think it was worth the wait. And sometimes in photography, it's nice to slow down a little. Taking the time, composing your shots, waiting for the perfect subject. Just, it doesn't always have to be go, go, go. After I moved on from here, I found this crossroad that was quite alive, and the way that sun was casting really caught my attention. There seemed to be loads of stuff happening around here, so I took it as a perfect opportunity to get some panning shots. And if you're a familiar watcher of the channel, you'll know how much I love panning shots. So I changed my aperture to f9, and then I was varying my shutter between 1/30th of a second and 1/20th of a second. And after I picked my vantage point, it was just a case of locking onto my subjects, getting focus, and then panning with them. And panning shots are one of those that add such a feeling of motion and chaos to an image, which also works really well when it's quiet, adding a little bit more interest to a scene. One of my favourite things to get panning shots of are bikes. I just love the way that sometimes you can catch the expression of the riders, or if they've got some really cool clothing on or some really interesting clothing on. On this shot here, I absolutely loved the way that the light was shining on this guy's back as he went through. As I started to walk down here, I noticed there was quite a clean reflection of the guy loading or unloading his car in the glass. So I wanted to try and create and use that in some way to frame the shot. And that can be a really interesting way to add another layer of interest to your images. So rather than just taking an image of the subject directly, look around to see if there's any different ways you can tell that same story. But you can also include more of what's around by using the reflections and creating these multiple layers in your images. As I touched on before, I'm just trying to follow the light a little, and I'm looking for interesting patches of light. So as I walk down here, I noticed this guy smoking on the doorstep, and at the same time, I noticed the double yellow lines on the ground, and I thought I'd use them as leading lines to draw the viewer's attention through the image towards the subject. And I think these ones turned out really nice, especially with the contrast between the light and dark. As we slowly start to wrap up this walk, I wanted to just talk a little bit more about this final series of images. And this is possibly one of those situations where I really liked the idea of what I was going for, but I wasn't sure if what I was seeing translated well into the image. So let me explain that a little bit. As I was walking down, I'd noticed this shop window on the corner, and there was glass either side, so you could see straight through. And in the window, there were loads of mannequins, where you could see their legs. There was also a wet floor sign, which also kind of looked like walking legs. And on the other side, you could see the legs of people walking past. So I wanted to try and capture this multi-layered image of legs and things that look like legs. And it's not like I don't like the final image, I just don't think it worked out as well as I was imagining. I think maybe slightly more chaotic than I planned, but in some ways I do still like what I managed to capture. And the fact they're not exactly what I was going for is alright. Not everything is going to turn out exactly the way you planned, but I think it's a solid composition. And sometimes it's about progress over perfection, and taking the comfort in knowing and appreciating the thought and idea you had and recognizing it. So with that, that's it for today's walk around London. I hope you've enjoyed tagging along. Drop a comment, hit a like if you've enjoyed the video, and subscribe for more street photography and photo walks. Check out the channel memberships if you want to support and help the channel grow. Next time, we're going to be back hitting the streets of London for some more urban scenes, so don't miss it. Remember, be safe out there, and with all that said and done, I'll catch you in the next one.